The A249 Fenice is Italy's bet that a clean-sheet attack helicopter can still matter in an era of cheap drones, loitering munitions, and networked air defenses. Conceived under the Italian Army's NE's program to replace the A129 Mangusta, the A249 blends classic gunship roles, close air support, armed escort, and hunter-killer anti-armor, with a digital battle network approach in which the helicopter is a flying node that senses, strikes, and cooperates with unmanned systems. Development formally kicked off with a development contract valued at €487 million, signaling a strategic choice to avoid mere life extension of the Mangusta, and instead field a platform sized, powered, and wired for the next 30 years. Leonardo's design choices tell the story. Compared to the A129, the A249 grows into the 7 to 8 ton class, trading the Mangusta's agility for payload, survivability, and growth margin. The Italian Army's requirement pushed for an open architecture avionics backbone, wide-band data links, and a mission system able to control or at least task unmanned aerial vehicles, so the crew can prosecute targets beyond the line of sight or decoy air defenses with expendable scouts. The air vehicle integrates modern self-protection, including radar warning receivers, missile and laser warners, and directional infrared countermeasures, tied into an electronic warfare suite designed to reduce both probability of detection and probability of kill. Leonardo also prioritized reduced signatures, both radar and infrared, recognizing that survivability now begins with not being seen. Propulsion choices reinforce the high-hot, heavy brief. The program selected the General Electric T700 family for power, a proven core matched to a transmission and rotor system sized for greater disk loading, allowing meaningful weapon carriage with endurance in hot and high environments typical of modern expeditionary operations. That power translates to useful performance margins. Publicly discussed figures indicate a declared cruise in the mid-150s knots at average mission weight, a never-exceed speed around 167 knots, a service ceiling around 20,000 feet, and out-of-ground effect hover near 12,000 feet. Endurance is quoted a little over 4 hours, with a maximum range of roughly 430 nautical miles, numbers that put the A249 into a different class of reach than the Mangusta, while keeping operating costs in check through commonality with other Leonardo dynamic components. Weapons and sensors were specified to de-risk near-term fielding while preserving growth. Italy asked to carry over mature subsystems where sensible. The OTO Malera TM197B chin-mounted 20mm cannon, Rafael's Toplight family of electro-optical targeting turrets, and the Spike missile line for anti-armor and precision strike. On the A249's short wings, multiple hardpoints per side allow mixes of Spike ER2 for 16-kilometer standoff or Spike LR2 for shorter range engagements, plus 70mm rockets, unguided or guided, and tip pylons that can host air-to-air missiles for self-defense against helicopters and unmanned systems. That mix lets an A249 pair conduct the traditional hunter-killer flow, one aircraft finding, the other fixing and finishing, while retaining the ability to suppress pop-up threats and prosecute fleeting targets of opportunity. The cockpit and human-machine interface are where the Post-A129 philosophy is most apparent. The crew's workload is managed through large area displays, sensor fusion, and cooperative tasking tools tied into a digital battle management system. Rather than being a self-contained shooter with a radio, the A249 is designed to be a participant in a multi-domain kill web. It can receive third-party targeting data, hand off tracks to ground units or other aircraft, and, critically, control or cue unmanned teammates to look over the next ridge or lays from a survivable vantage point. That matters in contested environments where every second of exposure increases attrition risk, and every extra minute on station allows a convoy to complete its movement. Programmatically, Italy has treated the A249 as an industrial and doctrinal pivot, not just a fleet refresh. After a first flight on 12 August 2022 and subsequent envelope expansion with multiple pre-series airframes, the Army and Parliament moved to scale to a full fleet objective of 48 helicopters, structured in tranches that bridge initial operational capability to final operational capability. In October 2025, lawmakers approved an additional 29 aircraft to complete that total, locking in budgetary commitment and giving Leonardo a predictable ramp. The result is a rare case in today's Europe. A Western clean-sheet attack helicopter kept on a politically defensible path to service entry and iterative upgrades. What, then, is the A249's theory of victory in the drone-saturated, sensor-dense battlefield of the late 2020s? First, standoff and geometry. Spike ER-2 at 16 kilometers gives the crew room to exploit terrain masking and prosecute armor or air defense radars from outside many short-range umbrellas. Second, teaming. The helicopter's ability to ingest and generate target data from forward observers, ground reconnaissance, loitering munitions, or unmanned aerial vehicles means the crew does not have to fly into every threat zone to create effects. Third, survivability by design. Signature reduction, active protection, and better kinematics lower exposure per mission. None of this makes the A249 invulnerable. It does, however, align the platform with a playbook where helicopters contribute as part of a combined arms, networked force rather than fighting as lone pairs. Compared to alternatives, the A249's differentiator is coherence. Rather than uprating a utility airframe into a gunship or extending a 1980s design, Italy is paying for a purpose-built machine that starts in the right weight class, with the right electrical power and cooling, and with the right digital plumbing to add sensors, effectors, and autonomy later. That coherence matters for lifecycle cost as much as combat power. An open architecture and industrial continuity within Italy's helicopter ecosystem should keep integration and sustainment costs manageable, while a common engine family eases spares and training. In a European defense market where budgets are tight and industrial sovereignty is prized, those attributes are strategic. The A249 will still live or die by doctrine and training. To get full value, Italy will need to rehearse manned-unmanned teaming as muscle memory, institutionalize tactics that assume enemy counter-unmanned aerial vehicle threats, and refine suppression of enemy air defenses packages where helicopters operate on the edges of integrated air defense systems rather than in their heart. It will also need to make hard choices about munition stockpiles. Precision-guided rockets and Spike ER-2 are superb, but their effectiveness in a high-intensity fight rests on depth of magazines and resilient logistics. The good news is that the platform gives commanders options, from high standoff hunter-killer work against armor columns to armed overwatch for convoys and special operations forces, without forcing exposure that characterized earlier generations of gunship employment. Finally, the A249's value extends beyond Italy. A committed home customer with 48 aircraft and an industrial champion positions Leonardo to market a credible European alternative to American and Turkish offerings. For partner armies already operating Spike or Toplight, integration risk is lower. For those wanting an attack helicopter that is natively networked for unmanned teaming, the sales pitch is stronger. If Europe wants attack aviation that is aligned with its own supply chains and doctrine, the A249 is one of the few programs charting that path.